2.8 is the distance in the midpoint formulas as well as circles, and today is day 1. Alright, so for today, we're just going to find the distance between 2 points, and we're going to find the midpoint of a line segment. So here we have our distance formula, and this is stuff that you probably did in geometry or you did it during middle school, but we're going to go back over it. So the distance formula says the distance d between points x1, y1 and x2, y2 in the rectangular coordinate system is d equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. To compute the distance between 2 points, we're going to find the square of the difference between the x-coordinates plus the square of the difference between the y-coordinates. The principal square root of this sum is the distance. And it's talking about the principal square root because remember we've been talking about how when we take a square root we get a plus or minus. Well, when we're talking about distance, we can't have negative distance, so we're only going to use the positive, which is what they call the principal square root. Alright, so let's find the distance between the points -1, -3, and 2, 3. We're going to express the answer in simplified radical form and then round it to 2 decimal places. So first thing is, we know we're looking for the distance, so we need our distance formula. Alright, the square root goes all the way to the end. And I'm going to label my points. So I'm going to let one of them be x1, y1, and the other one be x2, y2. Now I'm going to go ahead and set up my skeleton, which in this case I'm not going to put any x's or any y's in it because those are our 2 variables. So my parentheses, my minus, close it squared, plus my parenthesis, the minus, close it squared. And then let's plug it in. What is our x2? Well, our x2 is 2. x1, -1. y2 is 3. y1 is -3. And now we're just going to simplify this. So we got d equals the square root. 2 minus the negative, remember, is a plus, so 2 plus 1 is 3 squared, plus, again, minus the negative is a plus, so 3 plus 3 is 6 squared. So now I'm going to square them. Now guys, when you put these squares in the calculator, one thing, think it through. If you have a squared means times itself. So if you have a negative number times itself, negative times a negative is a positive. So what I'm seeing is some people will put, like if it had been a -3 here, they would put -3 squared in their calculator and it's going to tell them -9. But you need to think, you know that that's not what you meant. What you meant was the -3, all of it squared, which would give us a +9. So to be safe, anytime you're squaring something or raising something to an exponent, I would just put it in parentheses. Alright? Alright, so continuing back on with this problem. So the first thing we have here then is 3 squared, which is 9, plus 6 squared, which is 36, and when we add those together, we get 45. So right now I have that our distance is equal to the square root of 45. And that's in radical form, but it's not simplified. So we need to see, can we break this down? What multiplies to give me 45? Well, one of the things is 9 and 5. 9 is not prime, so it multiplies to give me 9, so 3 and 3. 5 is prime, so bring it down. 3's are prime, 5 is prime, so we're done factoring this out. Now remember, if you're looking for the square root, you're looking for 2 of a kind. I have a group of 3's, so I'm going to take 1 out for that group, and then anything that's left gets put back underneath that radical. Now remember, if you had more than one thing you were taking out, you would multiply it, or if you had more than one thing going back under the radical, you would multiply it there as well. And so now we know that our distance is equal to 3 square roots of 5. So there is our simplified radical form. And then it says to round to 2 decimal places. So we can put this into our calculator and we will get, let me grab mine up here. I think I remember what it was, but I don't want to make a mistake. Yeah, so in my calculator I got 6.708 blah 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 blah. It says around it to the 2 decimal places, so that would be that 0. And so you got to think, is that 8 going to make it round up, or is it going to make it stay the same? So remember, if it's 5 or greater, it's going to round it up, so it becomes 6.71. And that's our answer rounded to 2 decimal places. Then we have the midpoint formula. It says consider a line segment whose endpoints are x1, y1, and x2, y2. The coordinates of the segment's midpoints are x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. To find the midpoint, take the average of the 2 x coordinates and the average of the 2 y coordinates. So we're going to find the midpoint of the line segment with endpoints at 1, 2, and 7, negative 3. So again, we're doing midpoint, so let's remember our formula. And let's label our ordered pairs. So I wrote a little close, I'm just going to label them above. So x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, I'll build my skeleton. And it's going to have the divide, so have the plus on top and the over 2 on both of them. And then let's plug it in. We got x1, which is 1, plus x2, which is 7, y1, which is 2, and y2, which is negative 3. All right, now we're going to simplify these. When you simplify these, guys, you need to do the top first, okay? So 1 plus 7 is 8 over 2. We'll come back to that. And then do the top again. So you get plus and negative, which remember, same thing as a minus. So 2 minus 3 is negative 1 over 2. And then we can simplify this first fraction. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Negative 1 divided by 2, we could change it to a decimal, but we don't have to. So we could say that our midpoint was 4, negative 1/2. Or if you wanted to change it to a decimal, you'd have 4 and negative 0.5. Either one of these answers is correct. Now, make sure, guys, that you do the top first and then you do the bottom. If you're putting like that first one, the 1 plus 7 over 2, if you're going to just type all that in your calculator, you need to tell it that 1 plus 7 is first, it's together, and then do your divided by 2, okay? If you don't, if you just type it like this, calculator smart, it's going to do PEMDAS first, and so it's going to say 1 plus 3.5, which is 4.5, which is incorrect, okay? So you have to tell it, do the top first by putting the parentheses, and then you'll end up with your right answer.